and welcome to this brand new episode of Smart Money. Now today we speak about a crucial part of your financial journey, but a topic not covered much due to several reasons. Our topic today is how to draft a will and the do's and don'ts of succession and estate planning. Now, how should you protect your financial and digital assets in today's world? Even if you are young, writing a will is arguably the most essential stage in your financial journey because it ensures future security of your loved ones who should be able to gain access to their inheritance. Joining me on the show today is Vishnu Chundi, who is the founder and CEO of AasaanWill. AasaanWill offers legally vetted, valid, easy and affordable online will writing solutions. Vishnu, thanks a lot for joining in. Now, this show of ours caters to a lot of young Indians, the millennials, the Gen Z, and a lot of us don't even think about the concept of writing a will, leave alone going ahead and starting the process. So let's first talk about the importance of having and creating a will.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is one of those financial blind spots that all of us have, especially the millennials of India. And because we are so focused on career growth, saving, investing, figuring out the best portfolio, and I'm obviously an ardent follower of your show. But the last piece, which is ensuring that transfer of assets happens properly according to our wishes, is essential. And I'll give you a couple of quick stats. The reason why this is becoming important is, number one, there is a huge amount of unclaimed wealth lying in Indian banks, provident funds, insurance. You'd be surprised it's upwards of 1.5 lakh crore rupees. And this is an India that was not fintech India. So in my guess, if you fast forward another 5 years, given the advent of digital India, the fintech India, this number is probably going to touch 5 to 6 lakh crores, totally unclaimed and lying unused. And obviously, the people who suffer are the parents of the millennials, the dependents of the millennials, because all of this money is the hard-earned money post-tax which is lying there.
Oh,
that's number one. Number two, in the absence of a will, we end up spending at least 75,000 rupees and above to figure out the legal heir certificate, obtain the no objection certificate, and I will not even mention the time duration that it might take running from pillar to post to essentially get a hold of the assets. And some of these assets are actually highly time sensitive. Imagine if you've invested in like stock brokerage accounts and it's very volatile. So if you're spending 6 months to get a hands on the account, guess what? The time has passed, the value of these assets must have changed substantially. So there's huge issues that might happen.
Oh, absolutely. And you make a very valid point, Vishnu, because even I'm guilty of that. Like, I'm 36 years old and neither do I have a will, neither do my parents have a will, and neither do my in-laws have a will. So this is a process that needs to get started. I'm sure like me, there are several others out there who don't think it's necessary at this moment of time. I mean, all of us at some point, think we are immortal, right? So in that context, why does India need to be educated on will writing? What do you think is the need of the hour?
So I wrote my first will when I turned 30. And I think the reason why this is important is, allow me to give you a quick anecdote. It's a conversation between Yudhishthir and a Yaksha. And the Yaksha asked him, what is the biggest wonder in the world? And Yudhishthir then ponders and tells him, every day we see and hear about death. However, we are completely oblivious to the fact of our own mortality. And unfortunately, COVID has really brought that up to the front, especially through what we've been through as a country. And we've seen an incredible rise in financial planning following 2020. So coming to your question, why is it essential? I think India is changing. Fundamentally, if you're a young Indian and the way you invest, the way you acquire assets is completely different to the way your father or your father-in-law did when they were 36. For example, we have more and more urban women working, acquiring wealth on their own. We are no longer treating men and women differently. So the parents are actually investing in the education and may be financially dependent on the girl child. We have more and more people choosing to live together before marriage. So cohabiting couples is increasing. They don't have the same rights as a marital couple. More and more people might be choosing adopt kids. That's a completely different behavior. Then people are adopting pets. I'm sure you've got friends who actually treat their pets as their children. And we have same-sex couples. So the social fabric of India is going through a massive tectonic change. And unfortunately, the laws which were drafted in 1956 or 1925, the Succession Acts, they are no longer good for today's time.
Absolutely. So, let's just do a writing a will 101, right? For all of us who don't know anything about this process, tell us, what is the format of writing a will, and can I make a will for myself without a lawyer?
Absolutely. I think it is the right of every Indian to make a will. I mean, the will is one of the oldest instruments that we have, which is probably 8 centuries old as a concept. So in India, the right way to make a will is essentially you can take a piece of paper, articulate all your assets. So step number 1, list your items, the assets that you have, whether it's mutual funds, property, gold, can be anything that you think is of value to you. Then you basically mention who gets what, and the technical term for this is beneficiary. And then after that, essentially you need to identify somebody who's a responsible executor, meaning somebody that can enforce your wishes post the death of the will writer. And that person, again, I'll come to some do's and don'ts of appointing the executor shortly. Then you need 2 witnesses who are both above 18 and who are not beneficiaries of this will document. So they could be your friends, your colleagues, or anybody else who's above 18. And you need to ensure that you sign the will in wet ink. So none of the DocuSigns or the digital technologies will help here because that's what the law says. And the witnesses need to be present when you're signing the will. They obviously do not need to see the contents of the document. They only see the last page where you're signing in front of the 2 witnesses. And after that, we would strongly recommend to register the will because registration of the will ensures the KYC and it can help minimize future challenges because the registrar is going to look at you. Yes, sure, you're of sound mind while you're writing this document because we see a lot of movies and even cases where people get influenced after they are, let's say, 75 and so on, where they might not be fully up there. So we need to ensure...
Sure. Where do you register the will?
So you can do it anywhere all over India, depending on, of course, where you're located. So it's the same process. It's a sub-registrar's office. So you can go to your nearest sub-registrar office whenever the property, they go and essentially get the property deed registered. It's the same office.
Okay. And also, what do I need to keep in mind before writing my will? In the sense, you said that there are some do's and don'ts while picking the executor, etc. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, number 1, make sure that your executor is somebody that's younger to you because you don't want the executor to pass away prior to you. Similarly, ensure the witnesses are again 10 to 20 years younger. So those are the basics. And if you can get a medical certificate whilst you're writing a will that your testamentary capacity or you're of sound mind, that's fantastic. You've significantly eliminated issues for future challenges. And the other thing to note here is if you've got multiple children or multiple dependents, you need to mention everybody, even if you choose not to give somebody an asset. That way you're making it categorically clear that yes, I do have biological children, but one of them has been kinder to me, therefore I'm prioritizing him or her over the others.
Okay, I have many questions here, a lot of them personal as well, right? So one of them which struck me is that you said you need to keep your financial assets in mind when you're making a will. Now a lot of us have investments in mutual funds, and generally when you invest in a mutual fund, you have a nominee section, right? Where you either nominate your spouse, your mother, your father, or even your children for that matter. Now you were telling me earlier when I had a chat with you that even if you put in a nominee, it doesn't mean that if you pass away, your nominee is going to get the money. And that really got me to sit up and take notice as to if my nominee doesn't get the money, then where does the money go if I'm not around? So you want to clarify on that?
This is an incredibly important question. I think if this alone is the most important takeaway, which is a nominee is not the rightful owner. The person is only a custodian. And I'll break this down further. So I'll keep it in simple lay terms. If you appoint somebody as a nominee, that person cannot consume the asset. So let's take an example. A 40-year-old lady who's working, making her own wealth, and she's investing in mutual funds. She appoints her father as the nominee of that particular mutual fund because the father took out education loans, invested in her education, etc. Now she's gotten married, and and she's died without a will. According to the Hindu Succession Act, after her death, her assets are going to be split equally between her husband and the child. So father gets nothing, even though her intention may have been to give the mutual fund account to the father so that in the future the father is taken care of. But this does not happen. So it's a crazy state of affairs, and the nominee is purely a custodian. So the legal heir always supersedes the nominee.
Oh, that's very important. So, if you put a nominee in any of your financial assets, that doesn't mean that your nominee is going to get the money. It is purely, he or she is purely a legal custodian of that money. Eventually, the will that you write supersedes every nomination, and your legal heir, supersedes every nominee as well. Got that? That's a very important clarification. But many more questions coming through, Vishnu. Just give us a minute. We have to take a short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with Smart Money in just a bit. Welcome back to Smart Money. I'm sure a lot of you watching right now have never thought about writing your own will or even succession or estate planning, but this is an important topic in your financial journey. So we have with us Vishnu Chundi, who is the founder and CEO of AasaanWill, a digital platform that helps you write your own will and, of course, go through the whole procedure without any hassles. Vishnu, I want to talk a little more about AasaanWill, what it does, how it benefits, the person writing their will, etc. But I want to also talk about digital assets because, that's the big thing in today's day and age. A lot of young people don't have too many financial assets between the age of 30 and 40, but we do have a lot of digital assets, right? What happens to all of that when I'm gone?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. So the classic changing face of India is people are now buying insurance policies online. They're buying gold online. Real estate investments are online. REITs. So total transformation with the entire fintech boom. Now, what happens to all of these digital assets? And also, I have friends who are professional content creators. So they actually have YouTube channels, Insta channels, and they're making, that's basically their livelihood. So who gets that particular asset, which is literally a cash cow? And of course, we have the whole cryptocurrencies. I'm a huge investor in those as well. I think without a will, in theory, depends on platform that you're investing in. So I'm afraid I can't give an umbrella answer for all these assets, but let's take an example. Let's say your digital insurance. So let's say you bought an insurance policy online, and if you've appointed your father as the nominee, now the intent behind this is important. Is your intent that the father gets the 2 crore term life policy, full payments, or is the intent that the father distributes that with the mother and your children? According to the Insurance Amendment Act of 2015, if you appoint either your parents or your spouse or your children as a nominee, they are treated as a beneficial nominee, which means they can consume the entire payout. However, if you appoint anybody else outside of these 4 relationships, they are only treated as a custodian, not a legal heir. Very few people know about this. So this is important to know. Again, who's going to take care of your mother if everything goes to the father?
Yeah, very important. That's very important. That also brings us to the key difference between a nominee and a legal heir, right? It was an eye-opener that you told me that if I have investments in mutual funds and if and when I pass away, my mutual fund investments will be split between my spouse and my children, and my parents may not get anything at all. While a lot of us, I know, earn money so that we can also look after our old parents. So this is a big shocker that you need to sort of write a will and decide that, this much goes to my parents and then rest to my legal heir. So tell me about this difference, this classic difference. If you just want to once again clarify, what is the main difference between a nominee and a legal heir, and how do I ensure that my earnings are split equally between all 3 parties?
So fundamentally, as the English in India or even globally, one of the biggest misconceptions is people tend to use nominee and legal heir interchangeably, because nobody explains this to you, right? Like when you go to a bank and open a fixed deposit or any asset, like literally mutual fund is just one example. It could be your DMAT account. You appoint a nominee. So in your mind, you could be thinking, okay, everything goes to them. If that is the intention, then definitely that won't be the case, because most people in India do not have a will, which means they died intestate without a will, and therefore the succession laws default to treating their distribution of assets. So in the absence of a will, your nominee will only be able to operate the account so that they can then distribute the account to the rightful legal heirs. However, if you write a will and you categorically specify that I want my mutual fund to go to my father, that overrides everything else, because that is your last wish and testament.
Okay, that's very important. So tell me, if I want to, start this whole procedure on AasaanWill, take us through the route. How does it happen? How long does it take? What are the things, the do's and don'ts that I need to look out for?
So it's actually super simple. What we have done is we've digitized the entire information collection and will drafting aspect of writing your own will or a trust. So step number one, you just come to AasaanWill.com. You answer your questions about what assets do you have. Again, we don't need to know the value of the asset or the IFSC code or the exact account number. Only the information that helps your family members to identify the asset. So you can say, I have an account with HDFC in Burley branch. That's good enough. So step number one, list your assets. Step number two, you by filling a form, you'll be able to articulate who needs to get what. So your father, your spouse, your kids, your nieces, nephews. And one thing that we are noticing in India is, especially among the millennials, they are donating to their favorite charities. So I have given to both my alma mater, Fitz Pilani and London Business School. So depending on whatever you want, you can also include them. And finally, step three, our lawyers will get back to you within 24 hours by drafting a will. So it's not a computer-generated document. A real experienced lawyer looks at your situation and asks you these questions, so that this is not one-size-fits-all approach. After your first will draft is sent to you, and you can very quickly request for any changes. 99% do not ask for any changes because they've captured their wishes. And then step four is the signature with the witnesses and the registration, which also we take care pan-India.
Okay, that's great. That seems like a pretty simple and easy, process to follow. But you spoke about how the social fabric is changing in India, right? Now you have a lot more people, whether it's the millennials or the Gen Z, a lot of people are not having children, for example. There are a lot of single parents because of the rising cases of divorces, etc. So for single parents particularly, how can I safeguard my child's future if I say don't have a spouse? If I don't have anybody to look after my children, God forbid I'm not here, how do I safeguard my future as a single parent?
Yeah, fantastic question. So first question, is the child minor? Then you 100% need to appoint a legal guardian. And because this is your biggest part of your legacy is to make sure your child is protected, not just financially, not just their security, but also the kind of values that you want the child to grow up with. So you need to really think, who makes the perfect guardian for my kid? Who do you admire? Who is your person? Who is somebody that you trust with the well-being of your kid for everything, all kinds of cases? So definitely make sure you appoint a legal guardian for the child if it's minor, and then ensure that you're safeguarding the financial security. So once again, look at the biggest assets. So based on our customers, we know that the biggest assets tend to be the immovable property, so the real estate, and the term life policy of the insurance. Ensure that the nominee and the beneficiary are aligned there, because that is classic territory for disputes, because the payoffs are huge, the amounts involved are huge, so that makes it worthwhile for any family member to then raise a legal claim. And we see so many of these cases totally unnecessary, could have been easily nipped in the bud by taking right action prior to the situation. So prevention is better than cure in this case.
Okay, I have a lot of queries that have come through ever since, I spoke about your interview on social media, and we sort of invited a few queries as well. One query stood out for me, and I just want to throw this at you. If you can answer it, great. Srishti wrote to me, and Srishti, thank you for your question. She said, will you please include the problem of having a joint DMAT account and the death of one of the holders, because I had to close the account, reopen another one and transfer the holding. How can we obviate that? So that's a fair problem, right? I mean, a lot of us have joint DMAT accounts with our spouses, with our parents. What do you do if one of the account holder passes away?
Yeah, so again, in the case of specifically DMAT accounts, obviously the surviving joint holder becomes the nominee by default, so they can operate the account, and they essentially become the custodian. Now, typically, this problem, if I may expand the complexity, I think the real nub here is, imagine if you've got joint bank accounts, if you jointly own the property. That's when, if you do not have a will categorically stating how much of that particular asset you own in percentage terms, then again, you're just making it a classic dispute territory for your dependents, because they will certainly try and make a claim.
Well, Vishnu, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. And this is a topic that we don't generally talk about, but I think the need of the hour is to, put the limelight on topics like this, put the focus on topics like this, because it is a crucial part, as we said, of everyone's financial journey. Thanks a lot and all the best with your venture. Folks, with that, it is curtains down on this edition of Smart Money. Thanks for watching.